Hello and welcome to Dan Explains. I'm Dan. I've mentioned a few times in my videos that I've bumped into a few people, actually more than a few, that think it's pointless for us to explore space, or God doesn't want to explore space at all. One person actually thought it was bad. Well, I don't think God minds if we explore space. Let me explain why. I've touched on the subject more generally in a few videos. Unfortunately, I don't remember which ones, so you may want to poke around and find them. They're probably in my theology playlist. Anyway, the most common response I get from Christians when I mention space exploration, especially manned space exploration, is, why waste your time doing that? Usually the reasoning being, God doesn't want us to, or we're all going to be raptured in a few years anyway. The latter of which always gives me a little bit of a chuckle. I probably should do a video on the rapture, actually. I'm kind of surprised I overlooked it as a video topic for this long. The second most common response is the camp I fall into. What's taking us so long to get out there and start exploring? The last one was, we shouldn't because it could mess things up. Someone noticed that the extreme weather we're experiencing is because people went to the moon. Well, the only response that I can add to that is, okay. Moving on, there are biblical passages that back the idea of God not wanting us to explore space. The most obvious one being the story about the Tower of Babel, where God confused people's languages to prevent them from trying to build a tower to the heavens. Nowhere in the story does God strictly forbid people from trying to reach the heavens. However, the fact that he punishes people for trying to do so seems to imply he doesn't want them to. That conclusion misses the context and the intention of the people in the story. People at the time viewed the heavens as a much different place than we do today. Now, we don't know exactly what the people who built the Tower of Babel were thinking, but by the name, we know the area was probably modern-day Iraq, because that's where Babylon was located, and it was named after the Tower of Babel. The time the Tower of Babel story is placed is probably in the time of the Sumerians, which was probably one of the earliest great cultures on Earth, as the culture Abraham comes out of. So many of the stories early in the book of Genesis probably come out of the Sumerians as well, like the story of the Tower of Babel. Anyway, the Sumerians viewed the heavens as a series of domes, 3 or 7 of them. Notice the connection with the numbers 3 and 7, which is also common throughout the Bible. The bottom dome had gems, which were the stars. Then, there were several layers of domes above that. All these domes were viewed as the abode of the gods, with the sun and the planets being various gods, similar to other polytheistic religions. In fact, many of the religions of the world probably derived their idea about the heavens from the Sumerians. The Sumerians thought that the heavens were the abode of the gods alone. No humans were supposed to be able to get there. They didn't think that people who died would go to heaven. They thought that everyone who died would descend to a giant cave in the ground, similar to the Greek idea of Hades or the Jewish idea of Sheol. So it wasn't that they were trying to get up to the heavens to explore space. It was that they were trying to reach the abode of the gods. That intention was not viewed well by God, obviously. So he was punishing them for their intentions, not what they were physically doing. I mean, they could have built a tower as tall as they wanted and not gotten anywhere, and it's not like God didn't know that. A good analogy to this in the modern day is the laws that make it illegal to do things with a certain intention in mind. Let's say you're trying to build a rocket to shoot into your neighbor's house and blow it up, because they're always making their dog poop on your lawn instead of theirs. It doesn't matter if the rocket wasn't going to work and it was only going to blow up your own house instead. Building a large explosive device like that is probably illegal anyway, but ignoring that for a second, the act of trying was illegal because of the intention. So how about the idea we just shouldn't bother trying to go to space? Because we're going to get raptured any minute now anyway. I'm not going to mention anything about the rapture itself. but I think Mahatma Gandhi's quote, "Live as you're going to die tomorrow, but learn as if you're going to live forever," sums it up nicely. We don't know the day or the hour Jesus will return. I say that people will be living their lives as normal when he does. You can see from the Apostle Paul's writings, people thought right from the beginning Jesus is going to come back, literally almost as soon as he left. There are numerous passages about being ready for this return, but that doesn't mean we need to stop living our lives for it. If Christians had done that, they never would have made it out of the Middle East, and Christianity would have ended with the apostles. So this brings us around. Why bother? If you go off what modern academics have to say, the early explorers of the New World came over here just to plunder its riches. That was a motivation, of course, but the other motivation was to bring Christ to the new peoples they would find. There's none of that with space exploration, of course, as far as we can tell. It's probably one of the major reasons why space exploration has proceeded so slowly. If when we went to the moon, or sent the rovers to Mars, it was obvious there were civilizations there, you could bet the church and Christian governments would have been funding space exploration to facilitate evangelizing these civilizations. That doesn't mean there's no point, though. There are, of course, the riches that are in space, and as far as we can tell, it's perfectly ethical to plunder them because there's no civilizations that we're taking them from. They're just sitting floating there, waiting to be taken. That, of course, is a very secular reason, and is probably one of the only motivations to explore space, at least when we're talking about manned exploration anyway, that we currently have. If you think the space exploration goals have been all about science, go and have a look at the early ideas in the 50s for space exploration. The US had plans to build giant nuclear spaceships and capture the resources on the moon and other worlds before the Soviets could. The treaties that banned that sort of thing really took the wind out of space exploration almost before it could even get off the ground at all, and it made doing anything in space crazy expensive. It's taken a good 60 more years to get chemical rocket technology to the point where we're again starting to think about colonizing space to collect its resources. So is there any religious motivation for space exploration? I mean, after all, the only percentage so far could be construed as a greedy one. Well, let's go back to the explorers of the New World. I already mentioned the first two reasons why they wanted to explore the New World: evangelization and resource acquisition. There was a third reason, and that's the reason people came here to stay, or some people like to use in a derogatory way these days, to colonize. In fact, it's the reason why the United States exists at all. People came here to escape religious persecution. If you want more on that, I covered some of it in my video on the first Thanksgiving, link in the description. If you watch my last video on the death of Christian culture in the West, I think you may be able to deduce that this third reason for exploration will be a growing motivation in the coming years. With that in mind, I'd say us Christian types should get out there as soon as we can for the second reason I mentioned. Resources. The early bird gets the worm. If we let someone like the strictly secular culture in China get out there and take them first, which is one of their stated goals that they are in the process of carrying out, the next few centuries aren't going to go well for Christians. If we instead follow the example of Christian nations in the past, and we get out there before anyone else does, we could have another Christian renaissance, like we already did a few hundred years ago. The same renaissance helped form the West into the majority Christian place that it is today. Can you imagine how things would have been different if at the time, pagan Chinese had beaten the European powers to the punch? It could have happened. Just look up Zheng He, the Chinese explorer. He was exploring the Indian and Western Pacific Oceans 80 years before Columbus sailed the oceans blue. A change of power to more inwardly focused leaders put a stop to his expeditions. But if things had gone a little bit different, Zheng He could have discovered the Americas 70 years before Columbus. The Chinese today learned their lesson after having to take a back seat in the age of discovery. Their space exploration endeavors are now moving swiftly. Maybe Christians should be at least as proactive? Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please press the like button. subscribe to my channel, and ding the bell to get notified when I post new videos. Also, please support me on Patreon, link in the description. The more people support me, the more time I can dedicate to making videos like this one. So, until next time, have a great week.